distinguished members of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor to address you as the chairman of the Presidency of Bosnia and Herzegovina in the home of European democracy, an institution which for decades has safeguarded and promoted fundamental values: human dignity, freedom, equality, and the rule of law. I thank you for the adopted resolution of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe in January of this year, in which you expressed clear support for the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Bosnia and Herzegovina has been a committed member of the Council of Europe since 24 April 2002. During 24 years of membership, we have consistently demonstrated our commitment to fundamental values, human rights, democracy, and the rule of law. Our membership represented a strategic and civilizational choice. Bosnia and Herzegovina links its future to the European system of protection of human rights and democratic governance. Bosnia and Herzegovina actively participates in the work of the Council of Europe. Among other things, I would highlight our contribution to the Council of Europe's cultural cooperation through membership in the Eurimage Fund. Thanks to this mechanism, films from Bosnia and Herzegovina have been realized over the past 2 decades in partnership with European producers. Our Sarajevo Film Festival has become an important platform for the implementation of the Council of Europe's cultural policies and for the development of the European audiovisual space. This long-standing cooperation confirms that Bosnia and Herzegovina, through its institutions and the Sarajevo Film Festival, actively contributes to the strengthening the European cultural space and shared democratic values. Honorable members, we live in a highly uncertain and turbulent times. The contemporary process of geopolitical multipolarization of the world is faced with new geopolitical, geoeconomic, geoenergetic, military, security, and demographic global challenges. We are witnessing the decadence of civilizational norms and values, aggressions, wars, migrations, pressures, trade wars, climate change, energy insecurity, as well as the unpredictable consequences of the new technological revolution, which, among other things, brings the unregulated development of artificial intelligence. Global changes are significantly reflected in Bosnia and Herzegovina, a country with a millennial history. I remind the Republic of Bosnia and Herzegovina was subjected to brutal aggression from 1992 to 1995. During the aggression, grave crimes against humanity and other war crimes were committed, as well as genocide against Bosniaks. This is the only genocide in Europe after the Second World War. Dangerous great state policies are still present today in Bosnia and Herzegovina and the region. The protagonists of great state policies have changed tactics, but the goal has remained the same. They are currently attempting to realize it through political and diplomatic means in order to achieve their wartime objectives in peacetime. This is the essential cause of all problems in Bosnia and Herzegovina. The Dayton Constitution brought peace, but also numerous mechanisms of blockades and obstructions. The intention was for this constitution to evolve toward democratic standards and values, such as those contained in the objective of the Council of Europe. The European Convention for the Protection of Human Rights and Fundamental Freedoms is an integral part of the Constitution of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Unfortunately, the Constitution of Bosnia and Herzegovina has not yet evolved towards democratic standards, and the European Convention has not been consistently implemented. Ladies and gentlemen, last year we witnessed a dangerous attack on the constitutional order of Bosnia and Herzegovina. The attack on the Dayton Peace Agreement was initiated by the leaders of the Bosnian entity Republika Srpska, attempting to destroy the sovereignty of Bosnia and Herzegovina and to prohibit the work of the state, judiciary, and security agencies. However, through the responsible actions of the Constitutional Court of Bosnia and Herzegovina, the High Representative, and pro-democratic forces in the country, the worst scenario was prevented. Unfortunately, the policy of undermining Bosnia and Herzegovina and the Dayton Peace Agreement has also continued in 2026. At the beginning of this year, we learned that the leaders of the Bosnian entity Republika Srpska concluded a contract with a lobbying firm in which lobbying for the breakup of the internationally recognized country of Bosnia and Herzegovina was explicitly agreed. This is directly anti-Dayton and unconstitutional conduct, direct against peace and security. The Council of Europe, the United Nations, the European Union, and the entire democratic world should be informed of these anti-Dayton moves. Together, we must not allow the escalation of such destructive and dangerous policies. Ladies and gentlemen, Bosnia and Herzegovina, without denying collective rights and collective identities, should become a civic state. This does not mean anyone's hegemony, but enabling citizens, regardless of their affiliation to a particular collective, to enjoy fundamental human rights and freedoms. As long as Bosnia and Herzegovina does not become a civic state, we essentially cannot be a well-functioning European state. Bosnia and Herzegovina must abolish the systemic discrimination as established also in the judgments of the European Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg. All these judgments establish the existence of discrimination based on ethnic affiliation or the place of residence. Bosnia and Herzegovina has been ordered to implement the necessary amendments to its constitution, from which all elements of discrimination must be removed. Discrimination is unacceptable in Bosnia and Herzegovina and in modern Europe. The lack of genuine democracy is in complete contradiction with the fundamental objectives of the Council of Europe. Therefore, it is the task of the progressive forces in Bosnia and Herzegovina to fight for a society in which all citizens are equal before the law. Our goal is liberal democracy, in which there will be no inequality. It is of key importance to consistently insist on the protection of human rights and freedoms. Bosnia and Herzegovina, de facto and de jure, should be a democratic state in which human rights and freedoms are not declarative nature. It is up to us to consistently implement the standards that we share with all members of this organization. In this, we expect partnership, but also principledness. European values must not be the subject of political compromise. I recall that the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe adopted in 2006 an important resolution entitled Constitutional Reform in Bosnia and Herzegovina. In this resolution, the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe requested that the mechanism of ethnic representation be replaced by representation based on the civic principle, as well as that efficient and rational procedures for political decision-making be found. The same resolution called for a review of the territorial organization of the country and its division into entities, cantons, and municipalities, as well as the repartition of competencies between the state and the lower levels with a view to increasing efficiency and sustainability. These positions and assessments of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe are equally relevant 20 years after their adoption. Ladies and gentlemen, here in Strasbourg, in the Council of Europe, I particularly wish to warn of concerning proposals advocating further ethnic territorialization of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Such a concept is contrary to the principle of universal citizenship, the prohibition of discrimination, and the idea of integrative democracy. From the perspective of international human rights law, further ethnic division represents a form of discrimination. Such a concept formally offers protection of collectives, but in practice limits freedom of choice, political mobility, and the equal value of the vote. The consequence is not stability, but the ghettoization of political life. From the perspective of political practice, such solutions cement divisions, discourage constructive cooperation, and produce institutional blockage. Bosnia and Herzegovina cannot allow new lines of division. Our country needs a transformation of the existing model towards an inclusive, functional, civically based democracy. The protection of collective identities may exist, but not at the cost of violating individual rights. Reforms in Bosnia and Herzegovina should be guided by the principle of integration. It should be borne in mind that the Dayton Agreement is the foundation of peace, but that the European Convention is one of the foundations of modern democracy. It obliges us to consistently implement guaranteed human rights and freedoms. Reform of the Dayton system does not mean abandoning peace. It means its evolution. It does not mean abolishing collective rights. It means aligning them with individual rights. It does not mean centralization. It means functionality. As a member of the Council of Europe, Bosnia and Herzegovina has, among other things, accepted the obligation of full and immediate application of standards prohibiting discrimination and ensuring equal suffrage. These obligations, contained in the judgments of the European Court of Human Rights, are binding in nature and require legislative and constitutional reforms. Final judgments of the European Court of Human Rights do not leave room for partial solutions. Their implementation implies systemic harmonization of the constitutional and electoral framework with European standards of individual rights. In other words, the right to stand for election and political representation must belong to every citizen under equal conditions without constitutional or legal barriers based on ethnic or territorial affiliation. Only a normative framework based on equality, non-discrimination, and the functionality of institutions can ensure a stable and sustainable democracy in Bosnia and Herzegovina. The system established by the Dayton Agreement must become more functional. Ladies and gentlemen, when we speak about the future of Bosnia and Herzegovina, it is necessary to conduct the discussion in the categories of law, institutional functionality, and international obligations. In that regard, I consider that in Bosnia and Herzegovina we should implement constitutional and electoral reform with the aim of elimination systemic discrimination and full harmonization with the case law of the European Court of Human Rights. Consistently implement the rule of law, ensure the functionality of democratic institutions, which implies transparent electoral processes, election integrity, and citizen trust in political representation. Protect human rights in the broadest sense: freedom of expression, freedom of the media, prohibition of discrimination, gender equality, and protection of minority and vulnerable groups. and build a democratic culture which implies strengthening local self-government, education for human rights, and institutional accountability of public administration. Democratic values are not established only through norms, but also through everyday administrative practice. Ultimately, the future of Bosnia and Herzegovina depends on the acceptance of simple legal fact. Membership in the European legal space implies consistent implementation of common standards. Ladies and gentlemen, what should be done in Bosnia and Herzegovina? For the future of Bosnia and Herzegovina, among other things, it is important to accelerate the accession of Bosnia and Herzegovina to full membership in the European Union and NATO. Take into account the previous opinions of the Venice Commission on the political, social, electoral, and judicial system in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Harmonize the political, social, and the economic system with the norms, values, and standards of the European acquis communautaire on which the European Union is based. Undertake adequate measures to eliminate systemic discrimination of citizens and harmonize electoral legislation with European electoral principles and standards. At the end of this address, I will express a concluding thought. The future of Bosnia and Herzegovina lies in a comprehensive democratic reform of the social, economic, and state structure of Bosnia and Herzegovina, which will ensure that the basic political subject is the individual as a free citizen. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr.